Okay, do what you need to do. Stretch, rest. Good idea, Kat. And you Zoomers do the same thing. See a few faces. Hi. Okay, and y'all can hear me okay, correct? Here and on Zoom? Good. Well, good evening again. My name's Larry Dawalt. I'm one of the 6 IMCC Dharma leaders. And I want to thank you for coming out. And I also want to thank you for joining us on Zoom. My talk has the title of a simple question. What do you want for Christmas? What do you want for Christmas is one of the first questions I remember as a child where I thought my opinion was actually heard and needed and valued. After all, if you didn't say what you wanted for Christmas, you might be stuck with socks and underwear again. Now, this question was not only important to answer to my parents, but to grandparents as well. Even neighbors or friends would ask it, and it was especially important to the big man himself, Santa, who had the power to deliver anything you wanted, within reason, of course. Now, finding out exactly what you wanted was another thing. Amazon? Not there yet. Google? What? Emails or texts from advertisers? What again? For me, there were 2 main sources of information to find out what you wanted for Christmas. One was visiting stores, especially Western Auto, the hardware store, and if you got to go, the toy department of a big store. But the biggest sources of information were catalogs. The J.C. Penney catalog, the Montgomery Ward catalog, and the biggest and best of them all, the Sears catalog, simply known as the Big Book. Catalogs had everything. And every child in the house, and probably moms and dads too, took their time going through it. You could mark stuff that you wanted or even dog-ear the pages, but you could get in big trouble if you tore out a page, especially if that page had been something that a sibling might have wanted and you didn't hide it right. What you wanted for Christmas, though, was more than just a wish list. It was a chance for happiness, a chance to get something new, a chance to have something you were sure and you even promised your parents that you would treasure forever if they just got you this. As I reflect back now, knowing then what I didn't know now, it was also an open invitation to crave, to want something external that would bring happiness. Now, before you completely write me off as a bah humbugger, let me explain a little bit what I'm talking about and how it relates to the Dharma, and then I'll share a few thoughts on the real question, what brings happiness, and does it come in a beautifully wrapped box? So let's go back to Christmas Eve or Christmas morning when presents are open. There's anticipation, excitement, and potential joy as we think about the fact that what we always wanted in our life could be just a few moments away. But how long does it last? How long until the toy breaks? or until the new clothes don't fit anymore, or until the box that something came in becomes more fun than its contents. How long do we actually have to suffer because Dad forgot to buy batteries? How long is a new car new? Or a new house? Or a new wardrobe? Or even new groceries? What we're talking about here is the search outside of ourselves for something to make us happy, especially the trap of the perceived need for more, more, more. In his book, Eight Mindful Steps to Happiness, Sri Lankan monk Bhante Gunaratana, the abbot of the Bhavana Monastery in Highview, West Virginia, gives the example of how there are many people in the world who live with the pain of hunger, with unmet needs for clothing and shelter, and perhaps with the constant threat of violence or harm. And that because of its wealth, those people assume that Americans must be the happiest on earth. But if they were come to the United States, he writes, what would they see? They would notice that Americans are constantly busy rushing to appointments, talking on cell phones, shopping for groceries or clothes, working long hours in an office or in a factory. Why all this frantic activity? It's because although Americans seem to have everything, they are still unhappy. The song runs through my head every now and then by YouTube. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. What brings this about? Impermanence. Bhante G puts it this way: it seems that the very things that we think should make people happy are in fact sources of misery. Why? They do not last. Relationships end. Investments fail. People lose their jobs. Kids grow up and move away. And the sense of being well gained from costly possessions and pleasurable experiences fleeting at least. Changes all around us, threatening the very things we think we need to be happy. And it's a paradox that the more we have, the greater our possibility for unhappiness. You can get a lot of presents and still be unhappy. I remember specifically one year my brother had all these boxes. My mother had this habit of putting every little thing in a different box. And he opened up about 10 packages and then he looked around and he said, "Is that all?" My mother restrained herself. My father had more trouble restraining himself. And if you would have known what my parents were making at that time and how they were raising 4 children on that amount of money, you would understand why. Get a lot of presents and still be unhappy. This is the second noble truth. Barbara O'Brien, a Zen practitioner who wrote the book Rethinking Religion, put it this way: we continually search for something outside ourselves to make us happy. But no matter how successful we are, we seem to never remain satisfied. The second truth is not telling us that we must give up everything we love to find happiness. The real issue here is more subtle. It's the attachment to what we desire that gets us in trouble. This attachment may be to sensual pleasures, the pleasures that come from the 5 senses, beautiful sights, like a breaking sunrise or a gently fading sunset, a moonrise. I remember how last Sunday night, I was so disappointed that it was cloudy and I didn't get to see the moon come up. Guess what? It came up anyway. And some people saw it, and there were some beautiful pictures that I saw spread across the internet. But I didn't get to see it. And it was the beaver moon, and I love the beaver moon. Second era. It's not what actually happened, it's what I made of it. So I had to find my inner child, kick its little self, and get over it. It'll be back in January. Pleasurable sounds. Is there anything more pleasant than a beautiful piano? Or someone who can't play banging on it to be unmiserable or to be miserable? Music, birds, a gentle stream. I remember the first time I went to Southern Dharma. I'm going to point and Ward's going to know where I'm going. It's back to the big curve. If you go up the hill just a teeny bit, there's a place where the water runs a little bit faster. And the sound is absolutely mesmerizing. It's so peaceful. It's so pleasant. But when you walk away, it's still there, but you're gone. Kinesthetic, whether through feelings of emotion or physical touch. Yet some physical touch can be very unpleasant. Pleasing smells, certain flowers, or the smell that comes from the wind blowing across the saltiness of an ocean, like down at Hunting Island. One of my favorite smells used to be on Interstate 85 at exit 35. Say, how in the world did that happen? Marita bread. It was right down below the bridge there on the right. And if you caught it just right, you would think you were at a grandmother's house. Wonderful smell. And taste. Delicious, succulent, mouth-watering taste. All pleasant, yet all impermanent. In the Vekanasa Sutta, which is Sutta 80 in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha explains that a discerning person learns to break free from the idea that indulging the five senses makes life permanently meaningful and happy, because they rise up and they go away. And one thing I pay attention to here as we meditate is out there on Park Road. The cars go by, it rises up and it fades away. The heat, the compressor, it rises up and it fades away. But there are higher sources of happiness. And let's talk just a few moments about those. The better, more stable sources of happiness. Bhante G in this book mentions 3, and I have 2 more that I want you to consider. He calls the first the happiness of renunciation, the spiritual happiness that comes from seeking something beyond worldly pleasures. The enjoyment of solitude and peaceful surroundings, and the intentional pursuit of spiritual development. The second is generosity. Generously sharing what we have, letting go and giving not only of resources, but of time and attention. And one of the most wonderful ways for me to give is to learn to be fully present with someone in such a way that you give them the generosity of listening, and listening without judgment, acceptance, and kindness. The third is another form of letting go of anger. desire, attachment, jealousy, letting go of the need to be right. You perhaps heard me tell the story of my neurolinguistic programming teacher who said, Larry, did you know it's really easy for anybody to fall into a rage, but you need to think about what it would be like to be able to fly into a calm, to get that control. And while this is certainly done in increments, the awareness that this has actually occurred, the awareness that I caught myself and I didn't explode this time, can certainly bring present moment joy. And there is a laboratory for this in Charlotte. It's called Interstate 485. This is a laboratory. And in this laboratory, you can learn a lot. For me, there are two more. The first is simply gratitude. The more time I take to look around with mindfulness, the more I can see how much I have to be grateful for. There are people who are cold tonight. I can find one. He's out there at the back of Dunkin' Donuts. He's got his stuff all packed up. There's a bicycle. And he's leaning up against the bicycle. And I hope he makes it through the night. I will be warm tonight. For this, I'm grateful. And the other's contentment, being happy and enjoying a level of satisfaction with the way things are. Eliminating craving, not with forced effort, but with the gradual training of the Eightfold Path. If you try to make yourself do it, it's hard. But the path is there, adopting a core set of values and gradually moving toward living our lives according to them. And the beginning, as we talked about in our series, is right speech, right action, right livelihood, the morality path, setting that foundation that then allows us to develop a focus that moves toward concentration with right effort, right mindfulness, and beginning the ability to focus the mind beyond interruption, to feel it gone, and then come back right there on the tip of the nose and right there across with the breath. And from that foundation, developing a wisdom that helps us to find our way out of the tangle of unhappiness into setting intentions to follow the gradual path. I want to share two sections from my little book here, Dhammapada. First, a few lines from the chapter on joy. Health, contentment, and trust are your greatest possessions, and freedom your greatest joy. Look within. Be still, free from fear and attachment. Know the sweet joy of the way. How joyful to look upon the awakened and to keep company with the wise. How long the road to the man who travels with a fool. But whoever follows those who follow the way discovers his family and is filled with joy. Follow then the shining ones, the wise, the awakened, the loving, for they know how to work and forbear. Follow them as the moon follows the path of the stars. And then finally from the chapter simply called The Way. The way is eightfold. There are 4 truths. All virtue lies in detachment. The master has an open eye. This is the only way to the opening of the eye. Follow it. Outwit desire. Follow it to the end of sorrow. When I pulled out sorrow's shaft, I showed you the way. It is you who must make the effort. The masters only point the way. But if you meditate and follow the law, you will free yourself from desire. Everything arises and passes away. When you see this, you are above sorrow. This is the shining way.